Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to my channel here. I am going to be going over my Venom model showcase today, and that is just kind of what my model looks like in the charts. The Venom gap is a concept from Inner Circle Trader, and I have taken it into as my own model basically. And so I am going to show you how I use it to execute. I'm not trying to take any credit for creating this gap or this concept or anything like that. Today is a showcase of just how I use it. So the first one we're going to look at is the bullish representation of it. So we're going to start first with having a bullish target. Before any of this down here happens, we want to have a target that we are aiming for. We take into consideration the economic calendar, news events, everything like that going on in the world. And then we take into account time of day. I left this very vague here in this drawing because there is no time axis or price axis here in this drawing. But basically what I'm looking for is this to occur in price. And that is a bearish fair value gap right here and followed by a bullish fair value gap for the long. That these two gaps, the space that they share in between them is the Venom gap. And so at a later time, during a specific time of day, which is the last 10 minutes of the hour to the first 10 minutes of the hour, I am looking for price to draw back down into that gap and go higher towards my target. There will be videos coming later that are going to go into each component of this model in a lot more detail on how I use them. But this overall is kind of the, I guess, minimum expectation for this to form. You'll see I have a chart example on the next slide. This is how it actually looks in price. It looks much different than that drawing. As you can see, there are a lot more candles here in between the two gaps, but there is two gaps that share the same space at a very particular time of day. And that is, for this example, the 12:50 p.m. to 1:10 p.m. macro from yesterday, which was Friday, November 7th, 2025. You can see here just before 1 p.m. after it is formed, price drops into it one more time, trades up 25 handles, which for me that would be a partial, and drops all the way back down, back into the gap one more time. This is just another example of how I would use to execute if I missed this one, but trading back into this gap after taking a partial would have actually stopped me out had this been a trade I took. But again, using that gap, partial at 25 handles, another one at 50, ultimately reaching for this 20% retracement back into the weekly range was my draw on liquidity. And just to go back here, that is my higher time frame bullish target. It was a 20% retracement back into the range. If we look here, we had a Venom gap, we had a macro, it drew down into it, and it ultimately reached higher. So we had a higher time frame draw on liquidity or a target. We had a Venom gap right here. Price drew down into it during the time of day, and then ultimately went higher to the target. Now, in my drawing, that was a very quick movement. This one ended up taking almost 2 full hours to develop. But that is almost 200. I believe it's about 200 right up here, just above it. So just short of 200 handles higher. I'm not looking to get all of it. I am looking for very quick moves, and I am out very quickly because I am not demanding the entire thing, and I would have had to sit through all of this to see it deliver, and that's just not something that I want to do. So now if we flip it, you can see we have the short example here. We have a higher time frame bearish target. We have what looks almost, it's identical in price. What I actually did to create this slide is I flipped the image on the other slide, and then I recolored based on how I have the candles in my chart. White candles for bullish, black for bearish. But you can see we now have a bullish fair value gap followed by a bearish fair value gap. And that range that they share in between them, because look, typically on a fair value gap, you would go from this high to this low. Since this one didn't share the same space as this one, I'm only looking at the space that they share in between them. And then at a later time, during a macro, I'm looking for price to be drawn up into it and then go lower to my target. And how that looks in price here is this is from Tuesday. What was that? Tuesday was the 4th. Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. Right here, this gap happened to form inside the macro as well. So we had price go up and then go down. And then inside of that same time window, we trade back into it, because this 20-minute interval is all I'm looking at for putting in my entries in price. I am looking to enter in this 20-minute interval this formation. That's why I drew it like this. This formation of the gap does not have to form inside of that 20-minute interval. I'm just looking to use it inside of that 20-minute interval. This one happened to have both. So entering short, this right here, this was the liquidity void from 2 weeks ago, the new week opening gap. That is what I was looking to target. Price had traded to it here before, but I was looking for it to be closed because it is a void in price, as ICT explains in his videos. I was looking for a body to lay down over top of it on the daily chart. This is a 1-minute chart. So to get a body laying over top of it on the daily chart, we need the 1-minute chart to get all the way below it. And that had not happened yet. And so I saw this as a beautiful attempt to get lower. Ultimately fell short, but as you can see here, we use this Venom short to get 25 handles here, right there, 25774.50. And this would have been 50 handles here. Down, all the way down to here, that is a little bit over 150 handles. Again, I do not require that. My target is 25 to 50 right now, as I grow into expecting more and more in my development. But yeah, that is the two examples. That is an example of a long and of a short. As you can see, it is a very simple concept. It has taken a long time for me to develop this in my development, but I am sharing it with hopes to, I guess, help show kind of another view of how I do it, because I feel like it is very different than how a lot of people do it here in this industry, in this space. And that is because of watching Inner Circle Trader. There will be a link to his channel in the description for all of the in-depth that he goes into. But this is my model. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Until next time.